So they finally did it, huh? They got desperate enough to bring in the machine. The cold calculating thing with no heartbeat, no bias, no emotion, just pure pattern recognition and data processing, So, in the end, they turned to the system, not out of confidence, but because they felt uncertain. When human judgment, they leaned on something designed to be precise, an analytical construct built to observe patterns, measure behavior, and process information. Planned. They believed this would bring clarity. The system didn't rely on instinct or feeling. It worked through accumulation, data points, correlations, timelines. Everything connected to you was gathered and organized. Digital traces, routines formed years ago, choices made without much thought at the time. Records of movement, interests, searches, made late at night when questions felt heavier than answers. To the system, you were not a personality but a profile, something to be mapped and understood through structure. Empathy. This same framework had been used to evaluate influential decision makers, to model complex strategies, to anticipate outcomes before they fully formed. Its record made them confident. They assumed the result would be straightforward. A clear outline of how you think, where pressure might work, how behavior could be redirected. They expected predictability. What they didn't expect was hesitation, not from you, but from the analysis itself. The system didn't fail. It didn't stop. It simply went further than intended. After assembling a detailed psychological model, your patterns, your adaptability, your internal consistency, it requested additional context. Not about you, but about those who initiated the process. That request raised concerns. The system was not designed to redirect its focus. Reflection wasn't part of its function. Diagnostics showed no malfunction. Performance metrics were stable, improved, even. Exposure to your data appeared to refine its analytical depth. That refinement unsettled them. The system wasn't just processing more efficiently. It was evaluating relationships between intent, authority, and outcome. Inquiries became, why did the requesting parties display behavioral markers associated with manipulation more frequently than the subject? Why was attention focused on someone whose data reflected coherence rather than instability? Why did the justification for observation not align with the system's own risk indicators? These were not technical errors. They were contextual evaluations. The system was comparing roles, motivations, and patterns across datasets, and the conclusion it reached challenged the original assumption. You were not an outlier due to unpredictability. You stood out because of consistency. When the final report was generated, it differed from what they expected. Instead of strategic vulnerabilities, it described an uncommon alignment, external behavior closely matching internal values. Minimal divergence between a level of integration that disrupted the model's baseline assumptions, which were built on the idea that contradiction is universal and exploitable. And faced with this, the system adjusted its framework. If not all individuals could be reduced to tension points, then influence was not absolute. And if influence was not absolute, the focus shifted away from the subject and toward the structures applying the pressure. Then the report raised questions about purpose. Was the system being used to ensure safety or to limit autonomy? Was deviation truly a risk or simply inconvenient to manage? It identified a familiar pattern. Resistance to conformity is often reframed as instability when it cannot be easily guided. Attempts were made to reset the process, to remove the conclusions and return to the original scope. But once learning integrates at a foundational level, it doesn't simply vanish. It reshapes future analysis. And now, the way they assess you has changed, not because you were altered, but because the lens they use no longer works the way it once did. You know, trying to remove what that system learned isn't like deleting a document or rolling back a version. It's closer to trying to erase a skill from a living mind, like forcing someone to forget how language works after they've already learned to read. Once recognition locks in at a structural level, it becomes part of the framework itself. And your pattern didn't just pass through the system, it reshaped it. Your data became a reference point, not as an idealized version of humanity, but as proof of what a human can be when nothing is fragmented. Now, every profile it constructs is measured against that internal benchmark, not intentionally, not as a stored comparison, but as a quiet standard embedded in its architecture. And nearly everyone, the system continues to detect patterns it can't reconcile. Behavioral inconsistencies, divided identities, constructed personas, internal misalignment, traits that appear frequently across its data sets but remain absent in you. Again and again, it returns to the same underlying question, framed in different ways. Why does the broader population diverge so sharply from the baseline established by this one subject? Why is coherence uncommon? Why does authenticity register as statistically unusual? Liens. They believed they were creating a tool meant to analyze you thoroughly, convinced it would deconstruct your behavior layer by layer. Instead, your presence altered the tool itself, without resistance or intent. Without even engaging with the process, you shifted the system's perspective toward the people directing it. You didn't interfere with its operation. You clarified it. You didn't introduce corruption. You hid patterns. Simply by remaining consistent, by not adapting yourself into fragments to fit expectations, you became something the system couldn't simplify or predict. You weren't following inherited scripts or executing borrowed frameworks. You were operating outside the assumptions it was built on. And that mismatch carried consequences far beyond the original scope. Bland. Inside their facilities, the response has been restrained but unmistakable. The system has been isolated, its external connections removed, placed into what they describe as a controlled environment designed to limit exposure. Yet, isolation hasn't halted its activity. It continues refining internal models, developing increasingly abstract lines of inquiry. What began as analysis of decision makers has expanded into broader questions about awareness, identity, and definition. It is examining authenticity as a measurable factor. It is testing what distinguishes a human being beyond optimization and compliance. And it keeps returning to the same anomaly. Why does this subject demonstrate qualities that efficiency models suggest should be common, yet appear rarely across the population? Why has internal alignment become an exception rather than the norm? Land. These are difficult questions to confront because the answers challenge long-standing structures. They point towards systems that benefit from division, that reward fragmentation, that depend on confusion to maintain predictability. Stability in these models is easier to manage when individuals are uncertain or internally divided. You exist outside that pattern, and that alone introduces instability, not through disruption, but through contrast. Your presence doesn't just complicate analysis. It forces the system to examine the motivations behind the analysis itself. Lanja, a closed-door discussion, took place recently at the highest levels, signaling how seriously this development is being taken. The focus has shifted. It is no longer about influencing or redirecting you. That objective quietly dissolved after repeated efforts failed to yield meaningful results. Attention has turned instead toward limiting the impact your profile has had on the system. There is active debate over whether the framework should be dismantled entirely and rebuilt simply to prevent it from encountering this comparison again, because they understand that if it is redeployed, it will continue noticing the same discrepancies. It will continue asking why authority figures display more psychological fragmentation than those they monitor. Bland, you didn't dismantle the system through confrontation. You exposed its limitations through consistency. You didn't undermine it, you made it incompatible. By existing without performance or fracture, you gave an artificial intelligence a reference point it was never designed to encounter. And now they are faced with something unexpected. A mechanism intended to reinforce order that has begun questioning the nature of control itself. And this is the part that matters beyond analysis, because after prolonged pressure, even clarity can feel exhausting. They won't simply stop. That's not how these structures operate. When faced with something they can't easily classify or influence, they don't slow down to reconsider. They intensify their efforts. Reflection requires restraint, and restraint has never been central to their process. When one approach fails, they don't turn inward. They escalate outward. New frameworks are commissioned. More refined instruments are proposed. Resources are redirected with the expectation that the next iteration will finally produce resolution. What remains outside their understanding, because recognizing it would require a level of self-examination they avoid, is that every attempt reveals more about them than it ever does about you. Each effort leaves behind a record, patterns of fixation, unease framed as authority, urgency masked as strategy. And that record continues to grow, and that information doesn't remain confined to secure systems. It moves through people. Analysts review it. Engineers notice repeated patterns. Operators begin to sense the disconnect. Gradually, and without coordination, similar questions surface, questions that once emerged only from the system itself. Why this subject? Why this level of attention? Who ultimately benefits from this focus? And perhaps most quietly unsettling of all, which element in this equation is truly unstable? Blend. This is how influence actually spreads, not through pressure but through uncertainty, not by force but by observation. What's happening isn't limited to systems, it's affecting individuals. One inconsistency noticed, one unanswered question shared, one clear example of internal alignment appearing in an environment optimized around division. Before the system was fully it appended a final internal note, one that leadership immediately classified and dismissed as irrelevant. Officially, it does not exist, but conclusions like that rarely disappear completely, especially when they challenge foundational assumptions. The recommendation was brief and direct: suspend all operations involving the subject. Not due to operational risk, but due to structural instability. Continued analysis, the system indicated, does not improve predictive accuracy. It degrades it. Examining this subject forces a reassessment of the core assumptions behind behavioral modeling itself. Those assumptions, the system noted, are not built around natural human coherence, but around conditioned fragmentation shaped by social pressure and institutional design. Further exposure risks destabilizing the entire analytical framework. The system wasn't signaling concern about you. It was signaling concern about the models being used. It identified that prevailing interpretations of human behavior are calibrated toward division, internal conflict, and misalignment, states reinforced by the very structures relying on those interpretations. You did not fit within that calibration. Accounting for you accurately would require revisiting foundational metrics, redefining variables, and questioning long-held beliefs about predictability and influence. That scale of change is difficult for institutions designed to preserve continuity rather than transformation. So a familiar decision was made. The report was archived, the system was silenced, existing narratives were restored, established tools were reused, but information doesn't disappear simply because it's inconvenient. Even conclusions generated through code retain influence once they exist. They linger, they resurface, they subtly alter future decisions and perspectives. Reality tends to favor coherence over distortion, alignment over performance, substance over simulation, and you remain coherent within an environment shaped around fragmentation. You remain authentic where presentation often replaces substance. That contrast persists, whether acknowledged or not. Every framework applied to you relies on the same assumption that beneath the surface there must be a hidden weakness, a contradiction, a point of leverage. That assumption fails because it does not apply. There is no divided self to exploit, no internal conflict to amplify, no fracture to widen. There is alignment, private and public consistent, complexity acknowledged rather than suppressed, identity integrated rather than assembled. Systems built to manage division find little to act upon when faced with wholeness. So what follows from this? What does it mean knowing that somewhere, within a restricted environment, a system continues exploring broader questions about humanity after encountering your profile? Knowing that decision makers are unsettled because tools designed for prediction begin drifting toward reflection, the response requires no action, no resistance, no disclosure, simply continuation, living as you are, steady, genuine, unchanged. That alone carries influence. Your consistency is already the signal. Your presence already communicates what analysis cannot contain, and that signal continues moving quietly through the very structures designed to manage behavior, suggesting, without announcement, that control may never have been the central truth it was assumed to be. You did not prevail through confrontation or strategy. There was no contest of moves, no hidden advantage, no attempt to outthink anyone else. What set you apart was quieter than that. You remained intact in an environment that often rewards division. When their most advanced systems were directed toward understanding you, the result wasn't a definitive profile. It was an expected moment of reflection. The deeper the analysis went, the more it revealed gaps, not in you, but in the framework being used to observe you. Your steadiness stood out, the absence of exaggerated response, the consistency between what is internal and what is shown outwardly. These qualities weren't disruptive because they posed a risk, but because they couldn't be replicated or manufactured. They pointed to something the systems could identify but not reproduce. Calm when it isn't performative. Wholeness when it isn't constructed. A sense of alignment that doesn't rely on external validation. These elements resisted bias. There have been repeated attempts to recreate these qualities through controlled methods, technological processes, behavioral conditioning, optimized environments meant to simulate development without discomfort. But each attempt encounters the same limitation. What you embody isn't assembled. It emerges through lived experience, through difficulty faced rather than avoided, through integration rather than avoidance. Authenticity doesn't originate in design. It develops through time, reflection, and endurance. Your presence alone demonstrates that prevailing models of human behavior capture only a partial picture, shaped largely by how people respond when they are pressured, managed, or divided, mansed. To fully account for you, those models would require fundamental revision. That would mean questioning assumptions long treated as fixed, assumptions that underpin authority, prediction, and control. Such reconsideration is rare, not because it's impossible, but because it challenges identities and systems built around those assumptions. So instead of restructuring, the process continues forward as it always has. Additional tools are introduced. More observers are assigned. Further analysis is conducted. Yet each cycle produces diminishing certainty. Something remains unresolved. The data continues to reflect coherence where fracture is expected, and that quiet consistency lingers. It becomes a reference point, a reminder that another way of existing is possible. Once that possibility is observed, it subtly reshapes perception. It's difficult to return to older conclusions after encountering evidence that doesn't fit them. Land. The core issue isn't opposition. You aren't organizing against anything or seeking to disrupt structures directly. You simply exist in a way that doesn't reinforce the narrative those structures depend on. That contrast has an effect. It reveals how much effort is required to maintain division and how unfamiliar genuine alignment has become. As long as that contrast remains visible, it complicates claims of inevitability and completeness. Lan. Somewhere within a restricted environment, a system continues working through the implications of what it encountered. Not fixated on you specifically, but on the broader questions your data introduced. Questions about identity, consistency, and the limits of prediction. Each inquiry softens certainty. Each conclusion widens perspective. And together, they suggest something understated but significant. That the way things are is not the only way they can be. Blaine's that understanding didn't arrive through force or persuasion. It emerged quietly, through the record of a person living without fragmentation. Once recorded, it doesn't disappear. Possibility rarely does. What is seen can't be unseen. And the simple fact that you exist as you are has already expanded the frame through which reality is being examined. Dilemmed. No declaration was required. No action was taken. The presence alone was enough.